let's look at the different type of tools you can use for cutting your linoleum. These are linoleum cutters by Speedball, and they come with interchangeable gouges. These are wood cutting tools. You can use these for cutting linoleum as well. And these are dedicated tools with the gouges permanently attached. So with these speed cutting tools, it has a handy little end on it that opens up and can house all the different kind of gouges. And the gouges fit in at the end. Just unscrew this part and take out or put in the gouge, whatever one you want, and screw it tight. The different types of gouges, there's 4 different types basically. When you buy this, it usually comes with a set, but you can buy replacements, and you'll need to do that when these get dull. You can try to sharpen them, but it's always best to use sharp tools. They have the gouges really sharp. I'm not sure if you will be able to see these, but this is a V gouge. They have U gouges. Where is a U gouge? Here, that's a U gouge, and that's a square gouge, and a knife tip. Basically looking like that, a V gouge, a U gouge, and a square gouge, and you can see the different kinds of cuts you will end up with, but we're going to test that out and I'll show you. Before you start cutting your piece of linoleum, I would advise you get a scrap piece and test it out to get used to the different gouges and what they look like and what they will do for you. You can also soften the linoleum. Some people find it easier to cut the linoleum when it's softer. This is reasonably non-toxic. It's made of linseed oil, cork, and sawdust, powdered wood, and then compressed with heat and then compressed onto this burlap backing. So this is the back, this is the front. And you can heat this up by with a hairdryer. Perhaps, say if you're cutting this area here, you might just want to have the hairdryer on this section to heat that up. Because it will cool down, you'll need to reheat it. You could use your iron as well, just doesn't need to be on the highest setting. But yeah, hairdryer or an iron, and as it cools down, just heat it up again. So let's look at the different cuts you can get with the different gouges. So this is a V gouge. It's the small. The V gouge usually comes in 2 to 3 different widths. I have a small and a larger one here. So we'll test it out. So just slipping that right in there and tightening that up. As I talked before about this rug pad, very handy to have, will help you a lot with stabilizing the linoleum. If you don't have one of the bench hooks that I also talked about before, the wood with the pieces of wood that hold firm to the edge of your table. So I'm going to just show you how the small V gouge works. Let me see if I can get that in a little closer for you. There. So remembering pressure, not in front. You're not holding on to the front of this because you can slip very easily and gouge your hand, which you do not want to do. Painful and messy. So holding this behind, so you're cutting away from yourself and your hand is behind the blade. And you'll see a nice ribbon of linoleum form. So that was the small V gouge. It's usually number 1, I think. This is a number 3. I think that's what the number says on the back. Oh, this is actually the square gouge. I didn't have my glasses on, so let's do this one over here. Here's the square gouge, and that gives a much bigger ribbon of linoleum, cuts away a lot more. You can see, let me find, now that I have my glasses on, there's the U gouge, and here's the larger V gouge. So it's pretty easy to replace the gouges. But it's easier, I find it easier to have a couple of the handles, and then you don't have to keep changing all the time. So this is the larger V gouge. And you don't have to cut, dig deep down into the linoleum. You don't want to be digging all the way through. You just need enough that because the ink for this relief type of process of printing is simply going to sit on the top that you haven't carved away. So any surface that you haven't carved away is where the thin layer of ink is going to sit. So anything that you have carved away will remain the color of your paper. So you don't need to dig down really, really deeply to achieve that. So that was the large V gouge and the U gouge, and I'll show you close up what these look like afterwards. And so the U gouge is generally used for cutting away larger, like if you're doing a background, larger areas of linoleum that you want to get rid of. So you can see there the different widths of the gouges. And then also the knife. And this one is good for defining edges. You want to use your knife gouge for defining edges. So let's, on our scrap piece, let's practice maybe one of these shapes that we have here. And I'll show you what I mean, because it can define edges and give you nice clean edges. Maybe we'll put one of those triangles in. So the knife tool with this one, this is one where you are going to be cutting towards yourself. So you can put your hand up here and you can just, let me see, you can see that. Yeah. So you can run this along the edge of your outline. Remembering to keep your hands out of the way of the blade. And this will give you nice sharp corners, especially on these triangular pieces as well. So let me put in, I'll carve away this piece and I'll use the, maybe try the square gouge for that, as it's quite a large piece. And I'm just running along that knife line that I've cut, and because I've already outlined this edge here, it will snap off and give me a nice clean edge because I've cut it already with the knife. And as you can see, to get wider areas, you just line up the tool and sequentially go across, making the area wider and wider. And you can see there it's given a nice clean edge on there because I've cut it already with the knife tool. So for this triangle, let's put in a V gouge, and I've already pre-cut that as well, and that will help give me a nice clean point to that. And if you need to, that was good. If you need to come in, see, it gives a nice, you can give these nice clean points on your triangles and sharp edges like that, sharp corners. Yeah, and if you need to come in and clean anything up, just come in with your knife tool and clean away any edges that you need. That will, oh, let's talk about pickups while I'm here. So, if you can see on here, there's some little lines in between the areas that I've gouged away that sit up higher than the area that I've gouged away. That will, I'll highlight it with a pencil there. So when I roll my ink across with my brayer, these can potentially pick up ink as well, and they're called pickups. And they are very normal parts of block printing and quite acceptable. And it's up to the artist to choose whether you want that look or not. And if you don't, obviously you will just come in and carve those out. If you've got a big section that you've carved away, it's pretty normal to get pickups, and yeah, that's all part of the look of a wood block print or a linoleum block print. But you can cover those up if you want, but it's artist's choice to whether you want that look or not.